what time it is? It is story time. So today I want to do a video. I haven't done a video for a while. I want to make sure I stay in good practice, so I'm going to talk about your content. What do you need to post for your content? Most people struggle with what to post. They don't know what to talk about. They don't know what people are interested. One of the biggest things that will set you apart is to tell a story that involves you, your journey, what you're doing, any struggles you went through, and how you overcame those struggles, and encompass it in a story. One of the great things right now that TikTok has done is they've changed the algorithm a lot with basically it's based on watch time. Well, this is what a lot of the other platforms are doing to catch up. What is the most beneficial thing that you can post in order to have that algorithm work for you? It's a story. So when you post a story, people aren't just going to click off mid-story. Most people want to know how the story ends. That's how we're entwined. We're story. We've passed down stories from generations to generations to generations. That's how we used to tell history. So people want to listen to stories. You can notice anything that you see online. What's one of the biggest things that get people interacting with things? One, it's a story because they go with it. They're like, oh man, I want to know how this story ends. The second big thing is being vulnerable. Most people, myself included, had a really big problem being vulnerable. Why is that? Because we're very private people and we don't want our public information out there. Well, when I told my story about, going from bankrupt and crippled to creating $1 million business, people really vibed with it because they never heard somebody telling the bad bits with the good bits. So what you need to do when you create content for your business is tell a story. And don't be afraid to be vulnerable about your struggles, about the things you're going through. You may think that it's detrimental to your business because you don't want to act like you're not experienced, but what's actually going to happen is other business owners, other people who have dealt with those things, are going to vibe with that story. And that's going to get so much interaction. And when you're trying to build an audience or you're trying to build a community, the biggest thing that'll help that is telling stories so people can get to know you and teach lessons in those stories. So the big thing is have a story. It has to have a start, middle, end. That's how a story works. Every movie, every book, everything that's written has a start, which gets a little preface about the situation, has a middle. Usually there's a turning point where something happened, where somebody had to, had that hero's journey where they had to overcome something. And then the finish is when they get whatever they're after. So if you can tell a story about your brand, about your business, about your journey, and include the vulnerable parts about how you overcame those things, you will see your content skyrocket because people will actually vibe with you and they will start to trust you. And that is the whole point about posting content. So I want you to do one thing. Start telling more stories. Start being vulnerable because that vulnerability is what's going to get people to want to watch your stuff because it is such a rarity these days. So if you can tell a story and be vulnerable and teach a lesson, you have an awesome video and people will watch it and they will vibe with it and they will more than likely follow you because you're actually giving them valuable information and showing them the struggles that you went through to get where you're at. So start using stories in your content and not like the stories that you can post on Instagram and Facebook, like an actual story of what you went through, and be vulnerable enough to share the truth and watch how many people start flocking to your content because that is such a rarity these days.